listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, we're on a few minutes late. I would tell you why, but Taylor would take offense, so I'll just move on. Yeah, right.
Thrown under the bus already.
We can share the real reason of why we were late.
What is the real reason? Tell the people the real reason.
Well, somebody had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, that's right.
So.
You know, we're old men. That's what you do. Several times a night, I'm finding out.
I think he just said we.
Yeah, we.
Oh, man.
I was trying to throw you under.
Oh, yeah.
We're not old.
Wait, your time's coming. Believe me.
It's getting there. It's probably already here.
You know, people say, "Hey, Allard, what's up?" Oh, me 3 or 4 times a night. So.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Anyway, we got lots going on. We're going to do a couple of promotions, but we also are going to talk about a very serious subject. All right. As we all know, we had a attempted murder-suicide Monday night. Am I correct in that description?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that would be Monday morning. So
Monday
Sunday
morning.
night
Sunday
around
night.
3 a.m.
Okay.
Monday morning.
I have Collin Gregory here with Burleson Police, and he's going to tell us what he's permitted to tell us, all right, what they know about it. He's our resource officer, so he'll tell us what's going on. I'm sure there's a lot of details, investigation that probably should be kept under wraps until y'all are ready to tell the whole community, but you can tell us what has been available for us to know.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about the domestic violence program we have at Burleson PD, because not every community does that. Also, you were telling me before the air about the outreach y'all making and then what you're discovering in our town.
Absolutely.
And it's unpleasant.
It's eye-opening.
Yes, it is, because it's, you know, there's a lot of good things going on in this community, but there's also a lot of people that are struggling hard in various ways.
100%. And I think that's across the board, across the state, across our nation, across the world.
And I'll leave the politics to Monday. I'm going to be ranting about the election and referring to that, quote, debate from Tuesday night. I, like most of my friends,
Round one.
Yeah, round one. Yeah, sure. I watch baseball, you know, and it wasn't because, well, it was because I just didn't want to see the car wreck. But that's, again, I'm saving that for Monday, because I don't like to talk about politics with guests, because you don't need to be tagged with my opinions, even though they are entitled to them, according to Taylor here.
Yes, they are.
All right. Anyway, okay. I'm going to go through the sharing process now so we can get this right on at the beginning instead of, oh, yeah, I need to share this. So tell us what's going on with Burleson Police while I'm doing this.
Oh, absolutely. So you want a generalization while we wait on sponsors, or do you want...
Well, you're right. I need to talk about the sponsors, particularly one, because we got a big show next Thursday, and one of the sponsors really stepped up to the plate for his community, and I really appreciate what he's doing for all of us.
To the
pizza plate. Yes. Oh, you like that? All right. Yes, he's very excited. Okay, one more. I'm getting them all. There we go.
This is what it's like when I talk to my dad nowadays. So.
All right. Hey, I got an audience out there to take care of.
I know. You are a busy man and multitasking.
All right, let's do the sponsors. Okay. First of all, thank you, Otto. I was there at our place this morning, as always. Great food, great service. We have the same waitress every other Thursday, and she just says bang, bang, bang. She already knows what we want.
That's great.
You know, she told me her name once, but I've forgotten it. But she's been there about 13 years, I believe. Wow. And so it's just funny because we're 6 or 7 guys, maybe 8. Depends on schedules, and she'll go, okay, you want this, you want that, you want this, and just, yeah, that's about right.
What's on the Brad Allard plate?
I like this traditional stuff. I like the scrambled egg, sausage, and home fries. Wow. I'm pretty traditional. Now, I really like the cream gravy, sausage gravy, and biscuits, but that's not good for me at all.
Man,
it's terrible for me.
Speaking my love language.
Yeah, no, they're great. I'll wait till wintertime, but it's not good for my diabetic numbers, but the breakfast isn't a problem.
Right.
When I go there for lunch, I keep wanting to try the things, but I end up going to chicken fried steak because I just like it so much. And there you go.
Nothing wrong with good chicken fried steak.
Here's the thing, though. We all know Otto's involved with Gina's. It's his pizza place.
Yeah.
What we got going on next Thursday is going to be a very special show. We're doing a live remote at Gina's with the nonprofit groups. It's North Texas Giving Day next week. And about 20 minutes before airtime, Otto texted me and said, hey, I saw your post, whatever, can we do it at Gina's? And I go, you bet we can. We were going to do it at the Hub, but Camille and I would rather do it at Gina's for various reasons.
Yeah.
Taylor could tell us one.
pizza.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
He's going to provide some snacks for the ladies, and it's going to be at 11 o'clock.
I'm not a lady.
Well, he meant the nonprofit ladies. You're just going to kind of sneak a few. Anyway, here's the thing. I wanted to do it in a public venue so people could come by and see what's going on with these groups.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to do it in the studio, but when they come and get a pizza, have lunch, or maybe if they just want to drop by and say hey, and maybe donate to their favorite group, then it's a great place to do it. And I really appreciate Otto opening up his place for that. And you're going to be there as well, aren't you?
I am. I got a little bit recruited to come in and help set up. But you know what? Camera guys got to stick together.
Yeah.
And then after that, I figured I'd just stick around. And, you know, if they throw a microphone in front of me, I don't mind speaking. I mean, that's kind of my life. And then if they throw a pizza in front of me, I don't mind eating.
Yeah, well, you need to talk about what we're talking about today, because not everybody's going to see this as we hope. I'd like to think it's going to get good coverage, but next week will be even better coverage, because these ladies have their own share networks, and it's all, you know, on a strictly visual sense, if that's the word, views. It gets a lot of views because a lot of people, you know, they share it all with their various groups, so it'll even get your word out even further. But
well, anything that we can do to help promote them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I sit in this seat, I've been doing it now for a little over 5 years. It's like how fortunate this community is to have these people. But thank you, Otto. You'll hear more about this on Monday's show, and also and tomorrow I actually have a special show. Tomorrow I'm doing the Bertelsen Opportunity Fund, so they'll probably be part of it. I'm part of that group, so I may just do it myself.
You know, I need to talk to you about that. Do you realize I was one of the first recipients of
really?
It wasn't the BOF at the time. It was the American Shedder Leadership Scholarship, and paid for my first semester at Hill.
Yeah,
so.
And it's paid for a lot of my students.
Man, it's such a good program.
Yeah. So anyway, Gina's at 11 o'clock. Drop on by. Say hey. Say hey to your favorite nonprofit. Say hey to Otto. He's just recovering from being sick. So,
poor guy.
Yeah, he's just getting over COVID. So, all right. Also, thank you to Wild Cigar. They're also a great place to go and hang out. They'd be a good sponsor for this too, but I don't know if the ladies want to go in there. And I could see all the ladies smoking cigars and knocking back a drink, but still,
I don't know if Lisa's going to be there. I could actually see that.
I could, after talking to these ladies, they probably said I could use a shot, you know, because it's a stressful job, you know, these nonprofits. But anyway,
absolutely,
Chris and Nathan really do a lot of good stuff. They donate a lot of items to these various groups for their auctions or for door prizes or whatever else. I know that Reach Across Johnson County is being helped by them, and we'll talk about them in just probably later in the show.
Absolutely.
But they do a lot of community stuff. And this Saturday, they're having a tailgate party. You know, it's college football season, which is great. You better enjoy it while it's still sort of college instead of just becoming minor leagues for the NFL. But that's another show. But anyway, they're going to have a tailgate there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So drop on by Saturday and enjoy your time. Have a decent drink, have a good cigar. You know, it's funny. I always think of it as men, you know, smoking cigars. I've gone in there more than once, and there's some ladies got these big old stogies going. So, you know,
awesome.
Co-ed. Also, John Williams over at Old Pro Roofing. I saw him yesterday. And every time it rains, his phone starts ringing off the hook. You know, it's like we say all the time, you don't want to wait until it's raining to find out you have a leaky roof. You need to get him out there to look it over. So call him at 817-734-2756. They're an old town, so they're a local group. They're not, you know, some fly-by-night outfit that comes through town trying to sell you on roofing. They're going to be there. And if you're not going to have an issue, but you know where to find them.
Yeah.
And it's also, they're started by Burleson people. Unfortunately, one of them has passed, right? The late Matt Aiken started this group with his brother. And, you know, he was a very prominent city councilman and a former student of mine. And when back in, I'm going to say about 20 years ago, roughly, when he was in high school. And
so young.
Yeah. He was not an old man.
No.
So, but anyway, call John. He can also help you with the insurance. And that's becoming more and more problematic. I'm talking to not just him, but also a couple of my insurance friends at my B&I group, and they're saying some of these insurance companies are getting very, very difficult. You need somebody, an advocate, to get you through the thicket, I guess.
They were who we called when we needed our roof replaced, and we are very satisfied.
You betcha. keep the money in Burleson, as Alex Phillips will tell you.
Oh, yeah, he will.
Also, thank you to Jeff Kelly, a local realtor, the Wethington Group, 817-781-0546, or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. He has several houses to sell. I've talked to him, and I talked to Candy Gow over at Camco Mortgage. The mortgage rates are sticky. You know, they're a little bit of a problem. They give people pause before making an investment. What they would tell you is that you can always renegotiate your rates, but you can't renegotiate the price. And once those rates go down significantly, the price of the house tends to go up.
Yeah.
And if some of the plans I heard from Tuesday night come to pass, it's going to go way up. But that's, again, Monday show. Anyway, Jeff Kelly, though, is the guy to call because he'll get you through all this. Also, just kind of give a shout out to our friends over at the Cleveland Railroaders. Their season ended this weekend, unfortunately, but they provided a lot of good service to this community, a lot of good baseball, certainly, but a lot of good service to a lot of the nonprofits in this area. You know, I could think about 5 sitting here that they've had special nights for.
Right.
And it really is, it's great to see how they've embraced the nonprofit community and whatnot. Kay Goodell's done a great job. If you know, she's really good at marketing. I don't know if she does this on her own as well in the off season. You'll have to ask her, but she'd be a good one to have. So there you go.
We spent some time there on a network at night for the chamber. And beautiful facility.
Yes,
amazing.
Yes.
Really.
Well, I like that restaurant bar area.
Yeah.
That's quality.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it's air conditioned, you know, so.
And that's even better.
Okay. Well, we got a couple of people watch us. Thank you, Otto. I hope your ears are burning because we were very appreciative. I told the ladies that we're doing it, and he's getting a lot of hugs and kisses because that's going to be a great event next week. And also Alex, of course, he likes to check and make sure I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't be saying about Burleson business. So there you go.
That's a good man right there.
Yes. Well, anyway, let's talk about something less pleasant. I guess.
Yeah.
Tell us what you can about what happened at the depot this Monday morning.
Yeah. So before we even get there, let me start with this. We're going to talk a lot about domestic violence. We're going to talk about a situation that happened on Monday night. Is going to keep saying in my brain, but it technically would have been Monday morning at 3 a.m. So Sunday night. We're one of the most difficult things when we talk about domestic violence is to separate generalities. Domestic violence is all the way across the board. So we mainly, when we focus on it, a lot of people focus on a male attacking a female, and we call that domestic violence. Most people think of it that way. When we look at BPD, domestic violence is across the scale. It is females that are attacking males. It is males that are attacking females. It's not even, sometimes it's not physical. Sometimes we run into situations where it's mental or it's financial. Technological is a new one. That's you know, somebody takes a picture of somebody or records an event and uses that recording to blackmail or to abuse them in certain fashions. If you don't do these types of things, then I'm going to show your whole family these pictures that you sent me. That so abuse. When we talk about domestic abuse and domestic violence, violence obviously kind of falls more into the physical, but the domestic abuse, it's all the way across the board, and we're trying to fight that on so many different levels. What we saw Monday morning was definitely domestic violence. What we can say, and the case is closed, so it is there for open records. So there's really not a whole lot that we can't talk about, but there are details that I would prefer not to go into.
We don't need details.
Absolutely.
We don't need to get into the more graphic part of it.
100%. So what we had on Monday morning was we had a male individual who was an aggressor in a domestic violence situation. He shot his girlfriend multiple times and then retreated back into his apartment complex and then committed suicide.
How is the condition of the victim?
She is awake. She's stable. One of our detectives were actually able to go out and speak with her yesterday and get a statement and talk through everything that happened. We believe that she's going to be able to make a recovery. I'm not sure about her medical status as far as how well that recovery will go or the length of it, but we do know that she's talking and she was able to communicate. So,
is her name been released?
Her name has been released. I'm not going to say it,
Okay.
but that is available for open records.
Okay. Was there a motive behind this? Was it just mental illness, or was it anger, or what? Was alcohol and drugs involved? All that stuff.
So I know what we can discern from the situation, and really, there's going to be a lot of speculation out there, and so I'll need to speak on speculation, and then I'll need to speak on facts. The facts of the matter are, we had two people that were arguing. The aggressor was the male. The male shot the female, then shot himself. So that's the facts that we have. When we talk about speculation, this past week, one of our community resource officers, who is a liaison for apartment complexes, one of his jobs, one of his duties is to communicate with the apartment complexes, talking about trends that are happening, look for fraud, look at getting the communication between the police department and the apartment complex, which really doesn't happen in any other city. But Chief Cordell's really good about engaging with our citizens and our public. So he and I went to the depot. We sat down with staff and we talked to him. One of the things that we heard through all of that was something that absolutely disturbed me. And as the apartment complex rumor mill was going through, the staff was explaining to us that they would hear people say, "Oh my gosh, did you hear there was a shooting last night?" And the response was it so-and-so and so-and-so?
Right.
Because we've heard them arguing in the mailroom. We've heard them arguing in the parking lot. We've heard them arguing here and there. And then the fact that it was those two people. And so none of that really falls into where we talk about the facts of what happened. But it makes us as crime prevention specialists to look back and say, if people heard this, where should they have gone to be able to talk about this?
That's kind of tough, though. I mean,
it's extremely tough,
because you have a couple that gets in an argument in the mailroom. That may be a one-off thing when they get along fine 99% of the time, but they had a bad moment.
Right.
We've all had that. With our spouses. And so it's like, okay, I saw them arguing in the parking lot. Should I notify somebody? And they find out they were,
just having a normal argument.
Yeah,
right.
And so it's kind of tough. I haven't seen a great deal of speculation on the Facebook pages, but I don't hang around certain Facebook pages either.
Understood.
Yeah. So because most of the ones I hang around are not going to involve themselves in speculation. Well, I heard from a friend, or I thought, or so and so has told me that blah blah blah. I don't need to get involved in that, but I can't help but think that this young man had some sort of problem, mental or emotional problem, or maybe an addiction problem, because a rational person doesn't do that.
Right.
Even if you're having a really bad argument, is that really what's going to happen?
And not just basing it off of this case, because this case is closed. None of that was disclosed. What we have seen in other areas usually is some sort of anger management situation, mental illness situation, a lot of obsessive compulsiveness, that it has to be done a certain way. We have to look into the mental health side of things. And then we have to also have to look into finding people counseling. A lot of times.
Absolutely.
And something that drives me absolutely insane, Brad, and because I mean, if there's a pet peeve of bad things in life, domestic violence is one of those pet peeves to me. It just drives me insane. And working, and this is probably going to hurt me on the police side, but working in the ministry for the past 20 some odd years,
right?
Watching people come in with the problems that they have, and their most difficult. One of the most difficult things for them to do is to speak about it, especially when it comes to men.
Exactly.
Because men tend to internalize everything, and because that internalization doesn't go away. It's not that you swallow it and it just disappears. It begins to build up. And at some point you get to a place where it's either a self-harm, it's either an addiction. You have to find an avenue to put that.
Self-medication is the term I've heard a lot.
Self-medication is, and that's a horrible way to do it, because even self-medication is just working on it's not working on the problem. It's just giving you a release. And if it's just a constant little release over and over and over, and you're not working on the problem, you're still filling up with this rage and this anger. And at some point, something's going to happen. Now, that could be blowing up and yelling at somebody. That can be doing something physical to someone, or self-harm to yourself. Self-harm to yourself, that's kind of a double, but...
Well, if you I guess. Well, Thursday I had Erica Byers and Gracie Gray from Reach Across Johnson County, and I'm going to promote their seminar they have in 2 days. But we talked about this very thing. Oh, there it is. We're gonna put it up there at the end as well. But they have Saturday. They have a seminar over at Pathway, and it starts at 9:00, and they're talking mostly about mental health. But we talked a lot about addictions as well. And but mostly it's about mental health. And I've had several of these conversations with them and others that are involved in this. And I could tell you from my generation, it is hard, like you said, for men to get involved in this. And I've already made full disclosure. I do counseling it's a Christian-based counseling,
right?
But there's all sorts you could have out there, and I'm sure in your ministry position you probably know of sources and resources rather and all that. But it's something that I was reluctant to embrace about a decade ago, but I did because things are getting out of hand.
Yeah.
And because of various issues that I really don't need to get into. And it helped. But, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in therapy. Well, my guy tells me, do it for, until you think you got it under control, and call me back in a couple of years if you need it.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do it every week or every 2 weeks. Do it until you feel like you've gotten things back on track, and then hopefully you'll go a few years. And this is what happened with me. I went back to counseling about a month ago because I felt like, I don't know what it is, hormones, old man thing, whatever. I said I needed to do something. And now I recognize, rather than waiting until the end where I blow up and hurt somebody I love one way or the other, try to diffuse that early on.
Absolutely. Give a guy example. When I was younger, my dad, who, by the way, is a counselor, so that's kind of how I grew up.
Oh, yeah. I remember old Jack.
Yeah, old Jack, the counselor, man. Right. And I tell you what, there was a lot of, sitting around going, gosh, I wish he would just beat my rear end instead of sitting there asking me how I feel about this situation.
My dad was the opposite of that. He'd say, after the whipping, he'd say, how did that do? Oh, Dad, you were in good form today.
Yeah, absolutely. We would get in trouble. We'd get the spanking, and then we'd be turned around and be like, okay, so tell me why you did this. And I have to sit down. There'd be hours of me just sitting in a corner trying to figure out what's the best way to phrase this. So I think that's
it's so funny. I mean, it really is, because it's just so opposite. My dad wasn't that concerned about my feelings.
I don't know if he was as concerned about my feelings as much as he wanted me to learn, and really did. My dad is my mentor, and I love that guy.
Who doesn't? He's a good man.
That's probably one of the best people you'll ever meet.
I agree.
That didn't have 12 disciples walking around with him. Thanks, sir. He taught me to learn how to work things through, and to kind of get to that example I was thinking of when I was younger. Dad taught me how to change the oil in my car, and the first 3 times ish, Dad had to be there with me, because I'd forget to do the right thing. I'd forget to do this part, that part. He had to show me over and over and over. But it got to a place where I could easily do it myself. And fast forward now, if I opened up the hood of my Jeep right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you where in the world the oil filter is.
Yeah,
so counseling is kind of that same way. In the beginning, somebody has to be there. Somebody has to talk you through. But they give you the tools to learn. And if you continue to use those tools, you can work this out through yourself. If you're a person that's like, I don't want to be in therapy for the rest of my life, you need the tools to understand how to work these things out. Now, as you get older and as different things change in life, now you're at that new Jeep and you don't know where the oil filter is. You kind of have to go back and get a little bit of a refresher course. But that doesn't mean that I think the thing that men, especially men, we are so prone to say, if I can't deal with this myself, then I'm not worthy.
Exactly. You feel like you've failed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stigma to hold over ourselves, this is going to turn into a sermon here soon, Allard, but
amen, brother.
The Bible talks about that we're supposed to love our wives, but they're supposed to respect us. Respect is such a huge thing for men. And when you can't respect yourself, that leads to so much destruction. And admitting guilt or admitting fault or admitting I need help for a lot of people feels like destruction of self. It feels like I can't respect myself because I need someone to help me out.
Right. And I agree. And again, in my generation, we're taught basically that a man handles his own business.
Absolutely.
And I found out as I grew up, a way a lot of men handle their business is alcohol, primarily in my generation. But also, they weren't the kind of husbands and fathers they could have been. And because they, for whatever reason, it was just too much for them. And so I think there's a whole lot more resources available. I don't know if the police department where I grew up had this kind of department where they deal with domestic violence. But it is a problem then, and it's a problem now. You were telling me before about your before the show about the trips you and Stephanie Beard are making to the apartment complexes. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's myself and Officer Davis. So we've been going to different apartment complexes. So what we did, and I need to give two huge shout outs real quick. So right after this incident happened, we have a program in place. It's our domestic violence poster program. It's something we started about a year ago.
There it is.
Here it is.
Yes,
with the wonderful Miss Melissa Miller on the front cover. The poster program is a place where we put these strategically in areas where we believe female victims or female persons that may be in an abusive situation can be alone. So a lot of this started off in the small business area where we were asking businesses in Burleson to put these on the inside of the female stalls so that if somebody was to come in, that's one place that an attacker or an aggressor is not going to follow them. And during that time, that's sitting right in front of them as they're doing their business right before a show too, as they're doing their business. Yeah. And it gives them the opportunity to scan that code. One of the things we always wanted to tell them with the code, and it's kind of hard to plaster that on these posters, but scanning it does not mean the police are going to get involved. Scanning it sometimes is just, I need questions answered. I need somebody to talk to. I need help in this area. If I do this, what's my recourse? If I want to get away from there, what's the plan? That goes immediately to our victims assistance coordinator, Stephanie Beard, and she is amazing. That poor woman's phone goes off all hours of the day and all hours of the night, and she's immediate to respond to it. So people that are needing that help is available, and that help is free. This is not like you call, you got to do a subscription service or anything along those lines. I mean, this is a service the Burleson Police Department has. She's specifically, her position is specifically created to help victims of domestic violence or domestic abuse, or just somebody that needs someone to talk to. So when we started this program, once everything happened, we knew we had the resource to get out there, but we needed a way to tell people this is what's happening. So one of my first emails was to Melissa and Sarah over at the chamber. They did not hesitate. And the poor girls, they were actually driving to San Antonio as I'm frantically texting and emailing them saying, hey, here's the situation. This is what we need to do. I need to get as many of these posters into businesses around here. And they said, don't worry, we've got you. They got an email out to over 540 businesses instantly that afternoon with a code on there that allows you to click on and request these posters for your business. We immediately got 30 to 35 emails asking. I think we're up to like 80 to 90 posters requested at this point. Officer Davis did the exact same thing. So huge shout out to Melissa and Sarah. I mean, they did not hesitate whatsoever to get this out there. They're
very
amazing.
Effective. They are very, very effective representatives of the chamber and this community.
Oh, absolutely. Effective and passionate.
Yes.
I mean, passionate about this. That's something that is a value that we definitely need. After that, Officer Davis sent that same kind of email out to our apartment complexes. We got a ton of responses back, and we're going to strike while the iron's hot. We already have the posters. So Officer Davis and I began driving around. We're meeting with apartment manager after apartment manager, dropping these off. Actually, some of the apartment managers gave us some really good ideas on, where to place these, where to put them. Mail rooms were one of them. And as we began to talk to each of them, the apartment managers began to tell us stories. And now this does not mean that it is specifically to Burleson, because a lot of these managers have moved around to different apartment complexes throughout the Metroplex or state. But it's one after the next of domestic violence. And it's found everywhere. And it's not just specifically to apartment complexes. What happened at the depot is not specific to the depot. Their staff have been amazing responding to any sort of correspondence that we've had, asking. We brought them posters. They're like, we're putting this everywhere we possibly can. It just unfortunately happened there. But as we've been talking to these managers, they continue to tell us, oh, this one time, and then this one time, and we don't know who to talk to. We don't know who to call, because sometimes you're right. They were arguing in the parking lot, and we see it happen a lot, but we're not going to call 911 for two people arguing, but we don't know what's the next extent. These posters allow us to give them in communication with Stephanie. It doesn't have to be the victim that scans this code.
Right.
It doesn't, it can be the neighbor that says, hey, my neighbors are always yelling. I always hear things crashing next door. It's only if your neighbors next door are throwing stuff at each other in their apartment complex, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse until somebody steps in and helps them navigate that relationship and try to figure out one way for them to communicate without throwing hands. They need somebody to step in, but the neighbor next door doesn't want to call 911, and then it's like, our neighbor called the cops. They want an ability to be able to talk to somebody. This program allows that to happen.
Yes, and the anonymous factor of it really helps, because
absolutely,
I can understand why somebody might be reluctant if somebody's going to be violent with their spouse and may be violent with you, and you may, or with your spouse or with your children. You never know what kind of mental state that person is in. So being anonymous really helps. It just astounds me though when I hear this, because we don't think of that as a Burleson thing.
No.
We think of Burleson as a pretty stable community. I mean, we got our issues, sure, and I'm sure the police could tell us stories, but it doesn't have the reputation of, say, some urban, area of low income or something like that. But these things happen.
Absolutely. And what happened on Monday morning is the extreme. But what about the mental abuse? What about the financial abuse? What about the technological abuse? What about all those different types of things that may not be specifically a 911 phone call,
right?
But somebody needs help in that area. And a lot of times when these women reach out, especially when it comes to mental abuse and financial abuse and stuff along those lines, their question is, how do I get him help? They're not wanting to leave the relationship.
I was going to ask you about
wanting them. They just don't want the relationship to be where it's at.
I was going to ask you about that, because how many times have you had these situations and the abused person changes their mind?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, that happens. You can't.
Yeah, I know a lot, and it must be very frustrating, because they're going to go back into this situation. It's not going to get better. But wouldn't you say, though, most of the victims are women?
I would say, and this program is aimed towards that.
Okay.
We are working on a campaign to specifically target men. It's a lot more difficult. When we came up with this, it was like bathroom stall, female. It just kind of fit all the things. And a large majority of domestic abuse is going to be on the female side. We don't want to tell the men, you don't have a place in
I'm just thinking, a lot of men wouldn't admit to be physically abused.
No,
by their
absolutely.
wives.
And that's, again, that goes back to that respect
pride
thing. And absolutely. So that's where our campaign is kind of at a little bit of a small bump in the road is learning to figure out what the best way to communicate with men in that area. Because you and I are sitting here and I'm like, Brad, how you doing? And you're just like, oh man, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm fine. We're not going to sit here. We're going to talk about sports, or we're going to talk about your Monday podcast,
Yeah,
or we're going to, or any of those types of things. And that's going to be our way of communicating. We're not going to sit down and be like, Brad, how you doing? Oh man, my feelings got hurt by my wife last night. I mean, that's not the first thing that we're going to go off on if we don't already have a real intimate relationship where we're two buddies that have just shared all of our life together.
Well, and for me, it's very, very, very difficult to put myself in a place where I would be needing something like that, because my wife is, very tenderhearted. She's the last person that would ever abuse me personally or emotionally or any other type of abuse. She's a sweet, God-fearing, good woman. Not everybody's as fortunate as you and I.
I agree with that.
And so, but there's, and you think, well, why didn't he just, man up and, handle his business, and stop all this abuse? That doesn't work that way. When you love somebody, it's hard to sometimes bring yourself to be that forceful, I guess.
I think forceful is probably a little bit of a push. I think when you love somebody that much, and we see that, especially on the female side, they will get the tar beat out of them and still say, I love him.
Right.
They just want him not to be that anymore. Some people that can work with. I mean, some people will go in and say, I've got a problem. I need help. I don't want to treat her like this anymore, but something snaps in me, and that's what happens. They get treatment, and sometimes that means separation. Sometimes that means whatever that may mean. And there are others that they're not going to change.
Well, when you're talking about physical abuse, obviously there's laws against that.
Correct.
What can the police do about somebody that's mentally abusing their spouse, or emotionally, or financially, or these? I mean, that's a grayer area.
Correct.
Can the police intervene in somebody that's mentally abusing his wife?
I'd love to be able to give you an answer, and I'd really like one of our officers to be able to give you that answer, or Stephanie. But I tell you what, that's one I'm going to bring back, and I'll make sure to put a comment in in this about that, because but I mean, you're right.
Right.
Where is that line? Because at the same time, you and I can have an argument. We can have just a knockdown, drag out, screaming, cussing argument. Doesn't mean we're doing anything illegal. We still have our extended First Amendment rights to be able to say things. I don't know where that line is as far as like the mental abuse goes, but that's why we have programs like this, so that if there are areas that the law may not be able to step into, but it's still not a moral or ethical thing to have done to a person, these areas can step in. We can find you shelter. We can help you when. Given a general example, we get a lot of cases that somebody has choked out their wife. Or their spouse or their girlfriend. We have a choking ordinance, so they immediately go to jail. They're not. It doesn't matter. You're going to jail that night. We do not drop those cases. That goes down to the DA, and we'll just use Johnson County. She will sit there and thank us for saving her, and then a day or two later, she'll look at the bills and say, "He's the breadwinner, and I can't pay. What am I going to do with my kids? We're going to go hungry. We're going to starve." She will go down and she will drop the charges because she would rather take the abuse than her kids starve. And so these programs allow us to be able to intervene immediately. We're able to go in and we can say, hey, look, here's One Safe Place. Here's Johnson County Family Crisis. Here's Crazy 8 Ministries. Here's people that will come into your life, and they're going to help you get on your feet. There are grants out there to get people their high school diploma if they didn't get that done, to get them education, to help them find a job, so that you don't rely on going back and dropping something where we know by statistics, if he's choked you once, then it leads to death. That you're more likely to be murdered after you've been choked out on multiple occasions. And there's a lot of research behind just the fact of somebody choking you leads to cognizant disorders later on in life. So we try to get that information and that word out to people. You need this help, and let us help you, and we will do everything we can to keep you out of a place where you feel like you have to go and put this person back in your life.
Right. And, I remember watching this TV show one time, and it's supposedly a sitcom, but the theme was about abuse. And the woman was getting abused, and she told her friends, I can't leave. All the credit cards are in his name.
Yeah.
All the bills are in his name. The car's in his name. Where am I going to go with my kids? So I understand that. So a lot of people say, well, here's what I would do. Well, you really don't know what you're going to do until it's happening to you, because you're right. A lot of these people, and a lot of the men, it's for men too, he said, I can't do without her income. But for the women, it's primarily the women that's the victim here in many cases. And I hear, over the years of teaching school, I would hear stories, not very often, because they don't, not every student will come and confide with me all their stories. I mean, we got along great, we get, no problems in the classroom, blah, 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 but they're not going to tell me my father beat my mother last night. But it has come up, and I'd send them down to the counseling office, and I'd have to call CPS.
Yeah.
And not just because it's law, because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
But for those cases where there's no physical altercations, it's just a lot of yelling and arguing, there's I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't intervene in the home and is that something that CPS is going to intervene because their parents have arguments? Who knows, right?
Yeah, right.
So it was kind of a tough call sometimes. Usually what would happen is I'd go and tell the counselor or a vice principal, and they would bring the kid in and say, hey, look, we know what's going on. If it gets out of hand or gets worse, let us know.
Yeah.
But it was,
But even in that, there's that fear factor. We've talked about it with the spouses, or the female in the relationship. But look at the kids. If a kid comes in and confides in you, and then you go down to the principal's office, and they're like, "Well, we can call the cops and we can call CPS." You just, you know what? I don't want my parents getting in trouble.
Right.
And then they bottle that up themselves, and then you start seeing that mental attitude shift in that child. A child that may be excelling in school now becomes a normal or below average student because they're dealing with this type of stress in their life, but they're too afraid to say anything about it.
I would notice it academically first, so maybe they're just having it was not that their best unit, this particular area wasn't their strength or whatever, but if it goes over a length of time, and also if their physical appearance started changing, like they were less hygienic, or they're wearing the same clothes a lot, or if their clothes changed dramatically, like particularly if it went dark, then we'd kind of put a red flag on that one and see what we could do. But again, it is tough. You can't intervene in everybody's problems until they cross a certain line.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And hopefully what this is providing, and what Region Cross Johnson County is going to provide some training about and some conversation about, is how do you get to the point, how do you do this before it gets to that point? So
exactly.
I'm trying to say is how do you head this off before, I don't know what the situation was with that couple at the depot. It's unfortunate that somewhere along the line, particularly that young man, did not have somebody intervene and say, "Hey,
100%.
you got some problems here, buddy, and here are some resources for you."
Right.
And in our situation here in Burleson, almost all the resources are private. They're church related or privately. We don't have a lot of public. I kind of wish we did, but that's I'm not calling on the city of Burleson. They're strapped in their budget already.
Well, and that's us. I mean, this program, that is it. I mean, I understand from the church side that we tend to get a lot of church people. We don't tend to get a lot of people that are just like, well, I got burned by the church, so why would I go to them for counseling?
I've had that said to me before, because I've talked to a person just recently, said he could use some counseling. I said, well, they're afraid if they went to Christian-based counseling, it's like, well, you need to pray harder or better, or you sinned, and therefore, and the guilt trip comes, and they all think that's going to happen. My counseling is with somebody that's trained by the state. He's trained. He got his counsel from Southwest Seminary, but he has certification and a secular certification.
Right.
And if you want Christian-based counseling, fine. If you want to just keep that to the side, that's fine too.
Yeah.
And that's why I like this. I have the Christian-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of people, you're like, they said, I already feel guilty. I don't want to feel worse, and that kind of thing.
And, for those that out there that aren't a counselor, we use quotation marks there, sometimes it's just good to be a listener.
Mm-hmm.
God gave us two ears and one mouth, so we should be better to listen than we are to speak.
I think also, this is just my observation, and I read some stuff that maybe verified, is that in this social media age, we're becoming less and less attached to other people.
Yeah.
And I saw this in school. We used to have a fairly active student body when it came to school activities.
Yeah.
The last 5 or 6 years I was there, if we had a homecoming dance, we could have it here in the studio. I mean, there's no participation, at all. And I went to my last year there. I went to a couple of football games, and I remember the stands being full of kids. Not anymore. They just don't have interactions, and now they're going into adulthood, and they don't feel like they have any friends.
If I had a magic wand and I can get rid of anything in this world, social media and technology, even though I'd lose my job, but social media and technology is the one thing that I would snap my fingers and make go away. It has desensitized us to that human interaction, and nobody has face-to-face conversations anymore. We look down at our phones the entire time, and we talk like this, and you can't have a conversation, a meaningful conversation, while you're looking down at a phone at somebody.
Well, when I walk into a classroom, say like 15 years ago, there'd be people talking with each other. Now I walk in, it's dead silent because they're all staring at the phone.
Absolutely.
And so that bothers me because they're basically getting isolated at a younger and younger age, and then this is what happens.
Yeah.
These violent issues or these manic depressive issues, and again, Ted, will you put up the Reach banner up again? Yeah, that's why I suggest it's free, by the way, guys. If you hear this, I'd suggest you go to this because they're going to have different speakers about different types of issues, and they also are trying to focus on youth coming to this thing, and that's a big one. See if I got the poster here. Well, they have the QR code here, so you can register to come. But again, it's no cost. And they talk about addictions as well, but they're talking a lot about mental health, particularly for younger people.
Yeah.
And because by the time they become adults, that some of those habits of thought and emotion are pretty well entrenched.
100%.
And so, what is your position in ministry at the church you were at?
So I did 12 years of youth ministry.
Right, I thought that was the case.
Yeah, and then I've been the associate pastor for the past 3-4 years.
Right, I knew you worked with the youth a lot, so you know exactly what's going on.
100%. It's sad to say that when you walk into a situation, even the one that we saw on Monday, and you just change the days of their age, and you're like, I've seen this before. I've seen this happen.
This is a young couple, right?
Yeah, they're younger. I actually don't know what their ages are, but they are a younger couple.
Yeah, right. And this wasn't like my age or your age. Then,
No. They wouldn't have been able to see each other.
See, I always thought the youth minister job was harder than a teacher's job.
100%.
Much harder because
nobody respects us.
Well, that's not
especially younger youth ministers. I will say, I was older. I was in my 30s when I started youth ministry. It's usually some 21-year-old that just got out of seminary, and he's like, I'm going to be the pastor of this church one day, and then they stick him in youth ministry, and he's like, I don't like this.
There's a lot of landmines in that.
Boy, there are,
and so, but they're also that not so much towards the last couple of years, but throughout most of my career, I had the structure of BISD behind me, and I was the authority in the classroom. Whereas a youth minister didn't have that kind of backing. You can't, and you'd be very, very reluctant to say, get out and don't come back, because you don't know what's going to happen to that kid, and you want to be part of that. I've been friends with youth ministers, not as much as I used to be because I'm much older now, but when my kids were there, I was friends with youth ministers. I remember one, Chris Wigley. You remember him? He was the first.
He's familiar.
Yeah, he's the First Baptist. He left about a decade ago. Now
Gotcha.
he's a preacher in East Texas now at a church. He was a great youth pastor, and we talked all the time. And the things he had to deal with, made me say, well, my job could be worse. Because he was having to deal with stuff and not having the authority to correct it, really.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, I'm getting off the topic. But I just was the way we're talking about is that these people. The reason why I'm hoping that people will go to the seminar on Saturday is that a lot of parents say, I don't know what to do with my kid.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And so there may be some kids will come and maybe they'll get pointed in the direction towards help. They're not gonna cure you Saturday.
Right.
And this ain't quite the, Sea of Galilee we're going to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I get you.
But they'll get you started. To get you and maybe you say, put in your head, hey, okay, there are assets out there I can avail myself of.
Just to comment last on that youth ministry thing, that's probably what I dealt with for the majority of the 12 years. It used to be back in our 90s time frame that it was all the kids that went to church and this was their little club to go to was youth ministry. As it has progressed, it has been where parents show up and they throw the kid out the door and they're like, I don't know what to do with him. You figure that out.
It's amazing because one of the best blessings I had in my youth is I had a very strong youth group at my church, and we're still friends today. In fact, I saw two of them. I saw one of them, actually. The one had to drop out. But I saw one of them on Friday. I'm going to see another one next week. And there's about 5 or 6 of us that still, to this day, communicate and see each other when we can. And, boy, they kept me out of a lot of trouble. And when a couple of us of our group has passed, and you talk about leaving a hole, even though if you haven't seen them daily, it's like just you remember.
I have a group chat with 3 other people that I went to church camp with, and they're all over the state. And usually my phone's vibrating by this time of the day because it's around lunch, and most of them are teachers, and so this is their time off.
But see, and I'm afraid that a lot of our youth don't have that anymore.
No, they have social media. That's what they go to.
And I know the youth situation in our church is, the kids come, but I don't see in them what I got was that bond that prevented me from feeling too bad about things, and everybody in their teenage years are very melodramatic and emotional, whatever else. But I had so many advantages. I had 2 parents that loved me. I had 3 meals a day and a roof that didn't leak, a youth group that cared about me, a great youth pastor, who's also our music minister as well, and not everybody has that.
No, that's gone away in the American family.
And so I'm hoping that your efforts here, particularly with the apartment complexes that are getting to be pretty numerous around here. And I want to say a side note about that. So I heard somebody tell me, well, that's what happens. You build a lot of apartments. You don't think this is going on in homes on, Main Street or whatever?
Yeah, there are $1 million homes out there that this stuff is happening in, and there's somebody on a street corner just barely making it. This is happening in. I heard a great quote yesterday by actually one of the apartment complex that crime has no address.
It's exactly right. I mean, this kind of abuse goes on in the nicest neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
So that kind of characterizes as an apartment-based problem, and we wouldn't have these problems if we didn't have these apartments. It's just no.
That's when they turn their nose up and they get on their high horse and they say, "Well, not my neighborhood. This is an apartment thing," and it's not. It's a way to deflect the fact that they're probably in a situation themselves, maybe not physical, but they have something going on in their marriage and they're just trying to figure it out. And I don't know.
I know that
psychologically analyze them, but
but inside a lot of these homes, out on the outside look pretty calm and placid. Inside could be just total chaos.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think this is an indicative of Burleson changing. I would imagine that in our youth here, when you're in the 90s, I came here in the 90s or 88. I could tell you as a teacher this was going on in 1989.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure it was going on in 1975 or whatever.
There's no cell phone to record it. There was no social media to tell everybody and their dog about it. There was no, that stayed good or bad, it stayed kind of in the family, and you either work it out or you live through it. And
right, and people would say, "Well, it's really none of my business."
That happened a lot too.
Yeah,
and if we could figure out a way to let our community know that it is part of your business. Now, you're right. I go back to your example that you gave. Just see somebody argue out in the middle of a parking lot. We all have those days. But if you see that happening in the middle of the parking lot with the same two people daily, then maybe there is a time. And that our efforts with the victims assistance, that's a place they can go and just ask questions.
Well, this is kind of off the target or tangent a bit, but back when we had those race-based issues with George Floyd's murder, some of the community said we need to reduce the cop involvement and put social workers out there. Is that even a decent idea, or is that just some left-wing kind of idea? Because they said we don't have to have a cop respond. Let's have a social worker respond to some of these things.
I've seen some of the responses, and you need a cop involved.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm thinking too. I think a social worker might be in the aftermath, but in that encounter, you don't want somebody there. You want somebody there with some authority,
absolutely,
and maybe with a taser or something like that.
The beautiful thing about being over here the past year has been seeing my world change, watching what our patrol officers, our traffic officers, our detectives, all the way up through our administration, what they deal with on a daily basis that does not get out into the public, and they just deal with it. And our officers are so amazing that when they get to a place where they're like, we need Steph, they call her. And again, 3:00 in the morning, that phone goes off, and she's heading out the door to help somebody.
Where do you find people like that?
I think they come with wings and a halo, and I'm not sure where hers are, but she hides it. Oh, dang, that's a good one.
Yay.
But she hides them really well. She is a saint. I mean, there are not a lot out there like her, but we are so blessed to have somebody like her.
Well, like that example I just mentioned, I saw it in Minneapolis. There was an event where they had some guns going off, and this social worker says, "Okay, let's go and take care of it." And I thought, you got it. I'm watching them film it, and they were running down to the street to go take care of this shooting event. And there was multiple gunshots going on, and they're all in like yellow vests or something like that, or some sort of insignia to know what they are. And I'm like, that's craziness. When guns are firing, you need somebody that's going to be able to handle it and not go in there and say, okay, now let's talk about your feelings. And Minneapolis found out very quickly how silly that idea was, and they reinstated a lot of their police.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and now their governor's running for vice president. But anyway.
Brad.
I couldn't help it. Sorry, it's genetic. But anyway. But I'm just saying I know that they brought it up here in Fort Worth, and the Fort Worth said, "Are you nuts?
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. We want cops."
No. The nice thing is that Stephanie never walks into a place that our officers have not secured.
Sure.
And so they are... our officers are a calm in the storm, but they can be the storm as well. And so they know how to handle a situation. They have the best training out there. It is so wonderful for us to have a police force with the leadership that we have and the officers that we've hired. You couldn't ask for better.
Well, I don't want to say enjoyed the show, but I really learned a lot in the show. I mean, when you say enjoy, who enjoys talking about domestic violence?
I have that conversation with Melissa. I told her the other day, I said, look at how many posters we're putting out. And then we stopped and we're like, we don't want to have to do that, but look out, so we
this
get
is
it.
why sometimes I think, you should keep doing this podcast, and then I'd have this kind of show and thing, or next Thursday show, and I said, there's a reason why.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a purpose to it. And I'm going to do a couple of promos. Monday, I'm going to talk a little about the election, but it's just a general rant, so something you can enjoy on your own time. But tomorrow, I'm going to have somebody well, Patsy Dumas, and
my favorite people in this world.
And Lori Dias?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. She and Patsy run BOF.
Yes.
And those are great examples of the people we have in this community. They're going to come on and talk about the Burleson Opportunity Fund. We have a breakfast coming up October 10th, and that's the big fundraiser. So, in the breakfast, attendance is free, but there is a shakedown at the end. Guido and Rocco come around and say, "How much do we put you down for?"
I mean, that's what the church potluck is all about, right?
Right. Well, who can say no to Patsy Dumas?
Oh, absolutely. You can't.
It's like, how much? Just fill in the zeros.
Welcome to my world. She comes in and she's like, "Collin," and she just poses. And I got my camera. I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." Click, click, click.
God bless her. And Lori has put this breakfast together for like 11 years, and it's always spectacular. And so they've got that tomorrow. And then Thursday, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, it's going to start around 11. They're going to have the nonprofits coming in for short segments over at Gina's, and you're going to be there.
I'll be there.
We're going to need the police presence anyway. I'll
have a mouthful of pizza when you hand me a microphone, but that's all right.
Yeah, but it's going to be a great show. I've done it twice before on Giving Day, and it's one of my highlights.
That's awesome.
Enjoy it. And I thank Otto for making his business available during business hours.
He's been good to us.
Yes.
Real good to us.
Well, I know the cops love Otto.
Oh, man.
I don't think I've ever been in our place without seeing at least one table full of cops, Crowley, Fort Worth, or Burleson.
Every time, the missus and I would love our Gina's, and anytime he's there, he always stops by the table and chit-chats for a while. So I appreciate him.
So we got a lot going on in the neighborhood the next few days, so it's a good thing. Collin, I appreciate you coming by. I hope this program has gained success in what it's trying to do. So why don't I let you finish out the show? Tell us how people can get a hold of you, how can people get a hold of those posters, and all that. So
if you go, I tell you what, the easiest way to get a hold of us is to email victimassistance@burlesontx.com. That's a victim assistance. And if you even type in victims assistance, like I've made a mistake a couple of times, we redid that one to go to our victim assistance email. That will send an email to Stephanie. If you need to get a hold of me directly for any sort of marketing, if you want the PDF file for those posters, something you can put up in a smaller area, locker room or something along those lines, you can get me at cgregory, Gregory, @burlesontx.com.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks, man.
And thank you, Taylor, for all your nimbleness.
Good job, Tay.
And he's going to be doing the remotes, and it's always a good thing. And he's offering his services, too. I mean, this is his contribution.
What? We're working for free? I thought you were paying me.
Well,
Pizza?
Oh, hey, I will work for food.
Well, that's, this is his profession, and this is his donation in kind, so to speak.
I love playing with cameras, so it'll be a good time.
All right. So, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, so 11 o'clock.
Thanks, man.